I have no idea how many actual students are going, but there's quite a group at these meetings, and so but it's hard to know like how many students are going versus parents. Obviously, most parents are just there for the info, so curious to
Yeah, I'm here on time.
the size of.
Not what I wasn't sure I would be.
The April 1st, 2024 Auburn City Council workshop will be called to order. The first item on the agenda is the Auburn School Department budget presentation. We have Dr. Brown and Mr. Conrad from the school department and Ms. Albert, the chair of the school board, with us.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Harmon. If it pleases the council, we'd like to introduce the folks that we brought with us today. I think this is the first time we've had the two bodies all together since the election, so if you don't mind, we'll go through and make introductions. So to my right is...
Mark Conrad, business manager.
And I'm Connie, I'm the superintendent.
Pamela Albert, chairperson.
Yes, if you would, please.
Sure. Tim Cowan, Ward 2.
Belinda Gary, Auburn City Councilor at Large.
Leroy Walker, Ward 5 Councilor.
Steve Milks, City Council Ward 3.
Jeff Harmon, mayor.
Adam Platts, at-large City Council, and also I've had the pleasure serving with these great folks on the Auburn School Committee.
Ben Wisner. Ben Wisner, City Council Ward 4.
Rick Whiting, City Councilor, Ward 1.
Oh, no. Kelsey Earl, Finance Director.
Well, thanks, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to sit and talk with you about the school budget. And hopefully I won't pull this too tight and pull it out of the wall. So thanks, Phil, for letting me have the live mic, and that way I won't have to keep pressing the button. It's my pleasure to present my last budget to the Auburn City Council. It has been a great honor serving as the superintendent of schools here in Auburn, and I look forward to working with you for the remainder of my time here in the next 3 months. I hope to enjoy it, but not make it too exciting, so just file that one away. I guess the weather might stand in for you because it looks like we're going to have a very exciting couple days this week, so looks like we'll get a lot of snow. So, for starters, I want to make sure that everybody got the memo that was at your place tonight, and I do have extra copies, so if you didn't get it, I can certainly have one passed to you. So in the past, what we've done at this meeting is it has been more of a dialogue than a presentation, and I have shared with you the talking points that I have given to the school committee, and we'll be going over those briefly this evening. I also will pause. Superintendents do like to talk, so at any point, if you would like to ask a question or give me feedback about what you have in front of you, we are here to do that. Mark, to my right, Mr. Conrad, is also able to answer questions if I'm not able to do so, as can the other school committee members. So just to cap off our project our process before I get into the memo. So generally we begin in November. And what I do for the committee at that time is I go over what are the anticipated budget drivers for the upcoming, and in this case, the 24-25 budget. And that's in a workshop format, and we talk about the known costs if we have settled agreements that we know will bring a cost to bear on the 2025 budget. If I have debt, or which has been the case for the last several years with Edward Little, if I have utility costs or whatever there is that is going to bring pressure on the budget, we talk about it at that time. We also go over the ED 279, which is the document that the state sends to us and gives us information about the financial aid that we can anticipate. It's basically more of a how to read it document. And so from there, we start our budget process at my office in January. I meet with all of the departments comparable to what you do here in the city. And in February, I brought, February 28th, the first budget to the committee. And actually, something that I learned from Brian Carrier, some of you may know who that is, he was the former council liaison representative to the committee who asked me if I could begin writing a budget memo. And It was that suggestion, and a very good one, that created the budget memo that I have used from that point forward. And essentially what it does is it goes through all of the cost centers for the school department, identifies what the cost increases will be or decreases, because believe it or not, periodically we have a decrease, and what the mill rate is, what the anticipated savings might be or not, and what the committee can begin thinking about as we begin the budget process. Following that, we have a series of workshops every Wednesday in March, and we go through all of the different cost centers. And so, for example, the first cost center is regular education, which encompasses all of the schools. And then number 2, special education, and so on. And as part of our budget process, Mark records all of the questions asked by the committee. We put them on our website along with the answers, and all of the budget documents also go there. So the citizenry in Auburn is fully informed of what's going on. We're a very transparent process. I also make the offer to all of the schools to give them an individual budget presentation, and this year Sherwood Heights took me up on it, and so I was at Sherwood Heights last week to answer their questions and share with them in that setting what the budget process looks like. And so tonight we have our first meeting with you folks, and we're hoping to get some of your feedback from the information presented this evening. So let's get to it, unless somebody has a question about what I've shared. I can't see behind me, so if someone puts their hand up, tap me so I can know who that is. So our proposed budget for 24-25 is $62,234,945. And it is an increase of $3,163,656, or 5.4 increase over the 23-24 budget that was passed by the citizens in June of 2023. The increase in taxes that I'm asking for would be $1,069,062. And if passed as is, the caveat being no changes, the proposed mill rate for education for my side of the house would be $9.24, which is a $70.97 increase on a $150,000 home in Auburn. Now, I like to pause because I've been asked before, where can you buy a $150,000 home in Auburn? And the answer is, that's the number that we have used for years. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a home in Auburn at $150,000. But that is what we have used, and that is, if that happened to be true, that would be roughly $71 on that home. I think it's important to share with you what the budget drivers are going to be, what brings pressure on the budget. My budget is 80% people, and so salaries and benefits comprise the biggest portion of my budget, and it should be that way. We're a people business, and you would expect that the greatest cost would be associated with people. And so we have some settled contracts, we're negotiating others, but the largest unit we have is the teacher's contract. So right now, we're anticipating $822,572 in health insurance. We have been given an estimate of not to exceed. We belong to a health pool, and we think the health pool upper limit is 11.5%, and we will get our actual premium increase hopefully Friday. But Mark and I both think we will be very close to that 11.5%, and we've budgeted 12, so it looks like we hit it right on the money, but we'll let you know if that changes. A second increase for us is special education, and that's $1,104,021. So it's important to note that the legislature made a change in the way special education is costed and billed. And the change, well, I won't get into it entirely, is that essentially in the old days, for special purpose private schools like Margaret Murphy here in Auburn and Lewiston, you paid for the days that the student attended. And the legislature changed that because the special purpose private schools said they were losing money, and so now you pay whether the student attends or not. And we have a fairly sizable special ed population, and that was a significant change for us. So you will see that increase. You will also see an increase in what's called seed, and Mark can better explain that. I don't want to get into that right now, but taken together, those two are putting a fair amount of pressure on our budget. Then we get to salaries. We have negotiated and settled a number of contracts in the last couple of years, including transportation, teachers unit and the administrators unit. And so the anticipated cost of those settlements is $1,346,919. Related to that, the legislature also passed a new FMLA tax, and that is a payroll tax. So roughly, the Auburn payroll is about $30 million. I'll give you round figures. And we have to budget 1% for that. So that cost is anticipated to be $288,378. Also, we are, as I'm sure you folks are, dealing with the loss of the ESSER funds. These are the COVID funds that came into the school department as part of the COVID relief package. And so they will finish in September of '24. That's this coming September. And so for us, we have $924,875 in people costs associated with COVID and ESSER money. So taken together, we are looking at a hit of $4,488,765. It's real money. In order to help bridge that gap, and having the benefit here now of being superintendent for several years, I took a look back last year, the year that we're in, to see what we came to the council to help close the, we hope will be a less than significant gap. And so in the year that we're in, I cut 18.5 positions. Those are teachers, administrators, ed techs, positions in a school department. And that was $1,423,000. And that helped bridge the gap and helped relieve the tax burden for the city of Auburn. This year, I've cut 13 positions at $860,000. So if you take it together, that's 31.5 positions, or 5.4% of the total school department's staff. That's a lot. And so when you compare that, you might say, well, Connie, your enrollment is decreasing. So my enrollment is decreasing around 4%, and I've cut more than almost 5.5% in staffing. So that, I believe, should carry some weight with the city council. So the savings in those two positions, those two actions, are $2,283,000. So I think the school department is doing its part to help keep taxes down in Auburn. I'm doing everything I can to maintain a very strong school system, as well as understand the financial burden of people here in Auburn when they pay their tax bill. I read with interest Auburn's strategic plan, final recommendations, and I think its fourth one up from the bottom was to improve the image of the school and increase commitment to the value of education. So one of the things I like to look at is how are we doing? So as a state, I got the per pupil costs from the state of Maine. So we spend in Auburn, and there are two different costs because they come from two different places, but irrespective, we're low. So the state of Maine spends either $23,920 average per pupil or $17,655. We spend $15,365 or $16,195, which puts us in the bottom 15%. And that's we're 30 out of 215 school departments. So let's take a look at how we do with the money you give us. We've worked really hard in the last 4 years to help improve that image. We have a beautiful new high school. It's not just what is going on outside of the high school, which is a real draw for this community, but it's what's going on inside. So let's take a look. So when I came here in, whenever it was, 2020, the graduation rate for Edward Little High School was 72%. We were near the bottom. We were squarely in that 15% of the bottom. So how are we doing now? We're in the top 10. We have taken that from 72 to 95%, 94%. And you can see that the schools that we're competing with, either have fewer students than we do, they're significantly more resourced than we do. So we're doing really well. You may hear about a report that comes out, it's usually January, and it's called the U.S. News and World Reports. And they rank all the states, they rank all the schools, all the elementary schools, you can look it up. We landed in the top 20 with East Auburn at number 15. Fairview is also on the list. So we're doing really well. Our teachers are phenomenal. We've had 2 teachers nominated as Teachers of the Year. And I've listed who they are. And then lastly, one of the things that we work with in Auburn is we have a lot of poor kids. And I refuse to let that be a crutch. We can do just as well as any other community in Maine. I believe that. I've said that since I started. And you can see those results in front of you. We have made 40 points in our highest poverty schools. Think about that, 40-point gain. You can't point to another school system in Maine that can put up results like that. We have schools such as Fairview who have achievement in the 90s, 94 and 95% in reading and math. They compete very favorably with any other school in Maine, whether you consider a Kennebunk or a Cape or a Greeley. So we're doing really well. But what I'm here to tell you is that we do this with limited resources, and we work really hard. We have incredible staff, but we're not going to be able to keep doing this without resources that I've been asked for. I don't pad my budget. I don't put in things knowing that I can come in high and take something out. I ask for what I need. You know that. You know what my credibility is. You know that I've done that ever since I've been here, and I'm doing it tonight. And I'm happy to answer your questions, and as well as Mark. So thank you very much for the audience.
Council have any questions for the superintendent?
Thank you. Good report, and I appreciate your hard work, and I appreciate the work of the teachers and everything that you guys do. Couple of questions. When did the legislature change the law? Which legislature was that changed the special ed law? That
First session of last year. So what are we in the 132nd?
I think so.
I'd have to-
Yes, that's right. So this current legislature.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And is that the same as the addition of the FMLA tax?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this last legislature.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Council Whiting.
Thank you. The knock on special ed over the years has been it's necessary, but an unfunded mandate. I'm wondering how that is going in terms of federal dollars, state dollars, and how it impacts Auburn.
So we receive what's called local entitlement money to help with our special ed costs. But there's probably a 50-point gap between what is provided at the federal level, the state level, and what we end up bridging that gap with. So when they started federal, 1975, 78 was when that law passed, and they have never met that obligation.
Just to add to that, though, we're seeing an increase next year in our state subsidy of over 1.6 million. About $1 million of that is an increased reimbursement for special education costs. So at the state level, the state, I think, does a better job, certainly than the federal government, in looking at those costs and reimbursing you over time for those costs. There's a lag, so we don't necessarily see that increase in the year it's occurring, but over time, you will see an increase in funding in your subsidy for special education costs if you're spending more.
Another question on the transfer. I think the state is proposing a transfer of preschool special services that were done by Child Development Services, and then they'll be taken in-house by the school districts. Is that something you're preparing for?
So the state has a glide path of 3 to 5 years for us to get ready for that. We already have 4-year-olds in our school, so we'll be able to accommodate that relatively easily, with the caveat that we have to find staff. I have vacant positions as is. Many of those are in special ed, and I don't know where I'll get more staff to meet the needs of 4-year-olds. And then on top of that will be 3-year-olds that will be coming into the schools at some point during that 3 to 5 year window. So the state has promised to send funding for that. As a longtime watcher of state government, I'm a little bit dubious about whether that will actually materialize, but we'll wait and see.
Thank you.
Other questions? Council Platt?
Yeah, actually a comment more than a question, but I just wanted to address all the other city councilors and first say thank you to Dr. Brown and everyone who works in the school department as well as on the school committee. As we all think about how we digest this information and how we as a council stand on this, the thing I want to bring light to is that it's really a joy seeing the school department function and also the staff, especially the principals and the administrators who have come in. I think when I don't know what it was like, Connie, when you started, but I know it was a lot different. And, whatever the city council decides to do, we're investing in something that's working. It's great to see the camaraderie between teachers and employees in the school department. It's great to see metrics that I know you've focused on a lot in the last couple of years, showing statistical and consistent growth. So I think, it's important as we look at the budget and these numbers, we understand the health of the school department and the schools that we're sending our kids to. So that's not to tell anyone one way or the other how you should feel about these numbers, but you should have confidence that what we are funding is on the rise and is working. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Council Walker?
Yes, can you explain a little bit about 23-24? You said you 18.5 savings, and then please explain the 24-25, the 13 people that I guess you've either reduced somehow, cut somehow. Were them 13 people for this budget, were they all working, or were they ones that you didn't fill to start with from last year?
So let me go first to the question you asked about last year, 23-24. So those were teaching positions that had people in them, and administrators that had positions that had administrators in them, and ed techs that had people in them. And we were able to, through attrition and vacancies, absorb that. And then for this year, we have a rough estimate of, again, 13 people. Some of those are teaching. Did you bring your ESSER count? Go ahead, you can read it.
It's a little more complex this year because we have 15 staff who, over a number of years, have been funded through the pandemic funds, the ESSER, we call it the ESSER grant. That sunsets at the end of September, so essentially at the end of this year. So we've identified 6 of those positions as being really critical. For example, the nursing assistant at Walton. You need a nurse or a nursing assistant in a school. So 6 of those are being transferred onto the operating budget, which was a cost, but 9 of those are being eliminated along with 5 positions from the operating budget, and only 1 new position is created in special education. So that's a net of 13 positions, but unfortunately, a significant portion of that savings is from the grant. It's not on the operating budget side, right? So we're really getting hit with a reduction in personnel, but we're not seeing a full boat in savings on that on the operating budget. A lot of that's coming from sunsetting the grant. Did that answer your question?
Other questions or comments from the council? As I understand it, you're using $2.5 million in fund balance in thereabouts on the budget this year, and I just wanted to verify that and have you explain to the council the effect of that. As I look at this, it seems like this is likely to be the last year of being able to have substantial amounts of money going from the fund balance into the operating budget. Is that correct?
Your Honor, you are correct. So we have been able to capitalize on vacant positions, and those positions have gone into the fund balance. This is the last year, so we're using $2.35 million to help fund the revenue as part of the school department, and it is probably the last year. I would expect by the end of the 23-24 school year that we will not be returning $2.35 million back to the fund balance again.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Councilor
Just a quick follow-up on that. So is it your anticipation that there would be none returned or a dramatically smaller amount? Do you have an estimate?
About half.
Thank you.
And is that in large part dependent upon the success you have in filling the vacant positions? If you were more successful, there would be a lot less fund balance. You're estimating that, thinking you won't be able to fill all of those 51 positions, whatever that might be vacant.
That's correct.
So best case scenario, we shouldn't on a forward-looking basis, think there'd be any substantial amount of fund balance available. Perhaps there might be, but for planning purposes, we should assume that we won't see that in a forthcoming year.
That's right.
And just to clarify, make sure I understand, of the 18 and a half positions and the 13 positions, were any people actually laid off? Or were those positions moved, or those were just positions eliminated?
We did have an administrator who was laid off.
Okay, but most of them were people left, or the positions were vacant, not,
We were able to absorb them into vacant positions.
gotcha.
Other questions or comments from the council?
And how many vacant positions are there now, teachers?
Mark, do you know how many vacant teachers, not including subs?
I don't want to give a number. We can get that.
We'll have to get back to you with that
Okay.
because a number of what we consider vacancies are filled with long-term substitutes.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just if I could
Yeah.
make a couple comments. One, disappointed this is Dr. Brown's last budget presentation. She's just been exceptional for the city of Auburn, and she and I both came into office at the same time, so there were no expectations, and so we were able to really just collaborate on a lot of matters. And we meet regularly. We meet twice a month. We talk in between that if need be. And so it's just been really a great relationship with the school department. We've been able to take a look at additional services that the city has for resources to see how we can collaborate, and that's just gone really well. Between providing the maintenance component with the school for short term, when needed, the team stepped in and assisted with transportation and with the bus services, and it's just been a great relationship. The third item that I think I would mention is just the school department will be transferring into the Munis system. And when you have an entire city working on one accounting platform, it's just really beneficial. I mean, the efficiencies that we will see with that as we move forward, and it'll take some time. Our team is ready to work with the school department on getting that system up and running. Our team has been working off that software platform for many years now. So we're really looking forward to that component as well. And so just all those areas where in the past we may have had some interference, or it was just, there was just no real collaboration between the council and the school committee, we're really not, that's not there any longer. It's just been a great relationship. A lot of that has to do with the leadership of Dr. Brown. So sad to see her go, but excited for her and this next adventure. And I know we've got a few more months that we can really put some more work out of her, so we'll do that. So.
Phil, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure working with you.
So for the council, I know there's members of the school board here and Councilor Platts as well. My understanding is that the school board will be voting on the proposed budget on April 10th. So I think if councilors have any feedback to Dr. Brown and the members of the school board that are here about the gross number, right? People will recall that our responsibility is limited to the gross number. Tonight would be the opportunity to provide feedback so that they have that, any feedback you might have about that number when they have their deliberations and vote on the 10th.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, Council Walker.
I have heard from a few people, most people do not know that they were going to come in at the education level that they're talking about here. I don't think our taxpayers would pass this if it went to them right now in a vote. I think looking at it at $70 for an increase for a $150,000 home, the average people out there are going to get hit just with this budget alone, $150 more on their taxes. So I think that there's got to be some cuts somewheres here that's going to reduce the amount of money that they're asking for.
And from your viewpoint, Council Walker, do you have either a monetary number or a percentage in mind to advise the school department?
Well, it's really the first time I've really looked at it and seen the numbers. This is great to work with. I know I'm usually the tough one on them there every time they present a budget to ask them to cut it. I think the $70 is way too high. I think it's got to come down to at least $50 there, in my opinion.
So, Dr. Brown, as I make sure my calculation's correct here, the city tax portion of this would be 5.6% increase, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I think that's, and I guess the other follow-up question is, if that were decreased, does that have an adverse effect on the non-city side of the budget? Would it affect in any way general purpose aid to education, other revenue sources?
So for starters, every percent that you reduce the school department's budget is $200,000. So that gives you kind of a ballpark about money and percents. We can't drop, we do have, and Mark can tell you exactly what it is, an expected amount that the city has to raise in order for us to receive all of our general purpose aid. You have that? You have that.
Yes, like most school districts, we're well above that. So, and this is in your, the revenue sheet. We have to raise a minimum of just under 15.6 million. So in the budget proposal, currently we're 3.2 million above that. Next year would be 3.9 million. So we're, like most school systems, we're well above the minimum requirement for what we have to raise. So that wouldn't be a factor. And the $200,000 Dr. Brown referred to is the percent on the tax rate. So if you want to reduce the tax rate 1%, it's about $200,000 reduction.
I know we use mill rates, that's what we talk about, but just for the council, as you're deliberating, just keep in mind that assessed value is based off from the previous year's assessed value. If you were to go through each budget process and take a look at the mill rate, that's the actual mill rate that's set, that mill rate's not set when you approve the budget. So just something to keep in mind as you think of the $70, that could vary depending on what the assessed value comes in for the city.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, and I think it would be more helpful to think of this in terms of gross dollars that counselors think should be decreased, or a percentage instead of the 5.6%, some other percentage, because we're not going to know what the actual mill rate, as the manager has said for a while here now. Councilor Mills?
One other number that I'm looking at here, understanding that we just have a gross number that we approve, right? But to me, the ESSR, ER, that was something that didn't exist before 2020 or whatever, and now that's almost $1 million, 925,000. That is new budgetary numbers to me. That's adding positions that didn't exist before, and maybe things changed, but to me that would be a place where if we had to reduce the number of positions and moving people, that's, to me, that's a budgetary number it's a problem. Because that's adding something that wasn't already in existence in the budget prior to that, if that makes sense.
Dr. Brown, perhaps you could clarify that. I guess maybe I didn't understand it that way. I thought this ESSER line in the memo that you provided was the reduction. And from Mr. Conrad's explanation, even though there's some manipulation of the city headcount and the ESSER headcount, in effect, all but 2 of those grant-funded positions are being eliminated in net.
Right. So these funds came about at the beginning of the pandemic, and they've been around for 3 or 4 years now through different iterations, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. Over time, positions may have been added. We weren't supposed to supplant. So it's really prevented further increases in the operating budget, if you will, because we were able to tap into those grant resources. And we've used it in very good ways in other ways. For example, the new field outside of Washburn was funded with these funds. And this year, it's going away altogether. So there are positions that have come about over time as they were needed, and they've really become integral to our operations, but now the money's going away. And you're hearing about this on the news, that every district is facing this. And so by the end of next year, that $924,000 will be gone. And that's why we're facing a more stressful circumstance in looking at next year's budget.
Yeah, it's similar to what we dealt with ARPA funds,
Yeah, it's
And-
essentially the
and-
educational equivalent.
which we were extremely careful not to add positions that were dependent upon the ARPA funds. So that would be an area to me that I understand.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
And we did a combination of one-time costs like the Washburn Field or some of the furniture in the new high school, CTE equipment. So we struck a balance, but there were some operating needs for positions over time that we were able to tap into with that.
Yeah, just to make sure I understand that, the 924,875, it is in effect, the net effect of that is a reduction, because if you had added those positions that had been previously funded by ESSER in net to the budget, it would have been 924,875
Right.
higher than what you've
Right.
presented, correct?
And of course, some of that is just going away next year because those 9 positions aren't being restored. And some of that money is essentially being worked back in the operating budget by transferring 6 positions.
Right, so that money's not going away. That money's being moved into the operating budget.
Not,
Correct?
well,
Is that correct?
6 of the 15 positions are being transferred into the operating budget, so maybe 65% is going away, and an order of magnitude, maybe
Okay, so when
35,
it says-
40% is coming into the operating budget.
Loss of ESSER, 924.
Yeah,
All of that isn't going into the budget.
some of that is, but not all of that.
Okay,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
the percentage of that is in that situation is what, I assumed this meant all of that was going in, being absorbed into the operating
I
budget.
think it was designed to say that we're losing almost $1 million next year that we have this year, so we've had to place some of it in the operating budget and then leave some of it behind and not being able to, or eliminating positions, right?
Councilor Collins?
Mr. Mayor, I apologize because I don't remember all the details reviewing it this weekend, but there were 3 important positions, as I recall, or a number that came over but just some of those 6 positions that are coming over that I understood as kind of new and very important essential roles. If you could explain, because you were filling vacant positions as well as Mike.
Sure, I'd be happy to take a stab at that, and then Mark can add in. So some of those positions include a social worker at Everett Little High School. That is a need that we've had over years that has increased. Another is, as Mark mentioned, the nurse's aide at Walton Elementary School. So that's another position that has been moved. We have student-teacher ratio positions that have been moved from ESSER into the operating budget. We have one school in particular, Park Ave, that has had a tremendous, I wouldn't say explosion, but a tremendous rise in population this year, going from about 300 at the start of the year to almost 400 now. So we need to retain these positions to have reasonable class sizes. That's where the majority of those positions are.
Yeah, of the 6 positions, 1 is a social work position, 1 is a nurse's aide, but the other 4 are teaching positions, 1 in special ed, and 3 in regular classrooms that are necessary to try to hold down class sizes.
Thank you.
And is there an offset with that? I think what you explained earlier in this meeting was that those 6 positions were moved in, but there was some reduction in existing city-side staff, so it's not a net of a 6 increase, correct?
Right, all we're doing is transferring it from ESSER into the operating budget.
And then
So-
there were operating
Well-
budget positions that
Right.
were removed.
So in that, yes, so we've eliminated 5 operating budget positions, all of those teaching positions, in addition to the 9 ESSER positions. And then we had to transfer 6 over, but if you look at the impact on our operations, it's not a loss of 13 positions in the operating budget, but it's a loss of 13 positions in the school system because of the loss of the ESSER funds.
Right, so the net increase is one position?
Yes.
Counselor Geary, I apologize, I missed you before.
It's fine, thank you. I do thank you for this great snapshot, but it's a snapshot. I'm used to past years where we get a little bit more of your budget so we can see what your spends and what you're spending on and stuff. And as the city has took on more responsibilities, that they're doing work for you, services, but you're paying them and it's a cost savings. There's none of that to show off in here because these pages aren't bigger.
So if I might respond to that, Counselor Gary, in the 4 years that I've been here, this has been the format and this has been the structure that I've given to the city council. I can't speak to what previous superintendents did.
And if I could add to that, if you go on our website, there are about 100 PowerPoint slides that document everything from class size to the major drivers and the different warrant articles. So there's a lot more information out there. We just tried to give you the summary snapshot here, but on our website, you'll see a lot more information there. And for the record, the memorandum of understanding we have with the city, we're paying the full cost of those services. I think it was a net savings to the taxpayer. It wasn't necessarily a net savings to the school system.
Also, too, I might add that on your agenda for tonight is the full memo with every cost center savings or cost, as well as, Excel spreadsheets with documented budgets. So there's more than just what's in the memo provided.
Counselor Cowan?
Just also to point out that if I understand what we've had here, Phil, correctly, last year was a 6% increase. So you're working hard to keep it even lower in terms of the school dollars.
I'm sorry, there was some background. What was the 6%? I didn't hear what you said.
6% in total school expenses from 55.7 to 59.1.
Yeah, the school right now is sitting at 5.6. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, the key is to look at the tax levy, right? So that's where we should be focusing on when we take a look at the budget change. And so, counselors, in your book, that first summary page, if you were to take a look at the total tax levy, just above that, you're going to see within that would be where the city tax levy is currently at, where the school tax levy, and as Dr. Brown mentioned, the tax levy for the school is coming in at $1,069,062, which is the 5.4%. I apologize, 5.4%, currently within the proposed budget.
So again, I think it would be helpful for the council if you're not supportive of the property tax side, the levy, to identify some dollar reduction or percentage reduction so that the superintendent and her staff and the school board can have a discussion before the 10th about what the impact of that might be and where within their budget they might make adjustments such as that. Any comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I think one final comment, and I guess this ends up being a question, is one concern I have when looking at some of these major drivers that are completely out of your control, with a 12% increase in health insurance and just shy of 9% for special ed. Am I correct in making an assumption that if you were to make cuts, the other big cost center out of your 6 would be regular general education? Would that be where you would have to cut, or do you have? So, stop there.
No, you're right. 80% of the budget's people, related to people cost. And so $200,000 is a big number, and you don't make that up in pencils, forgive me. So I would have to look at people and programs in order to find that. I don't have a sense right now where the council is in terms of percentage. Councilor Walker, I appreciate you leading the hit off here with that. That's helpful, but I don't have a sense of where other people are, because there's a big difference in terms of $200,000 and, say, $600,000.
Yeah, and I think the only feedback at this point is from Counselor Walker, and just back of the napkin math, using the mill rate, it seems to me he's suggesting around a $300,000, $330,000 reduction.
That's correct. And I'd like to make a comment on your fund balance. For years, I've sat here, and the fund balance pretty much has always brought in somewhere around $1 million or more. So I feel safe that 330,000 could be taken care of with that if it had to be.
Well, I'm a little confused. Perhaps with your experience, you can explain that to me. So I think what Dr. Brown said was that they might anticipate half of the 2.3 million coming in fund balance, but that's in this budget year in which for conversation, 330,000 would be cut. They wouldn't make that up in this year. That wouldn't be available till the next year.
So if I might, Your Honor, if you are suggesting that I would increase the contribution from fund balance from 2.3 to 2.6, would leave an enormous hole for the next superintendent. And I think that would be irresponsible of me to do.
Other comments from the council or thoughts about the budget number?
Sure.
Council Platt.
Yeah, another comment I'll make. So I guess my perspective of this budget, of the final number, so I've sat through every departmental presentation, and I think as we've seen at the city level, everyone is making the most of the money that they've got in their budget. There's not a ton of fat in there. Again, it's not my prerogative to comment on line item opinions, but I think in general, as I look at this budget, as we're about to look at the city budget, I'm the type of person who would say, can we get to 5%? Are there any concessions that the school department can make? Because I certainly know in this next presentation, we're going to be having a very similar conversation about the increased tax burden on the taxpayer. So I guess to throw out a number, I'd be curious if the school budget could drop, down to 5% out of 5.4. That said, I have no idea where it would come from. I can tell you that these budgets are tight. So if we are asking for a decrease, we are talking about people. We're talking about people's jobs. And again, I foresee a similar conversation at the city level. As I look at this budget, I also have to look at it in the context of the overall city budget. So this is coming in right now at a proposed increase of 5.4%. I believe the city budget will come in somewhere, is it around 13, and then blended, it'll be a large number. So I think we do just have to think about what kind of increases are we looking at for the taxpayer for everything, not just school, but also combined with the city. Because if we're asking the school to go down below 5, below 4.5, below 4, then we damn well better be prepared to ask the same of the city. So I think it's important to look at that blend. I don't believe there's much that can be taken out of this budget. I think as a matter of principle, I'm happy to just pose the question of 5%. Is it possible? Maybe it's not. That's clearly something the school committee will talk about. But I don't believe it can go much lower, personally. So.
Councilor Milk?
Yeah, and I'd like to add that the taxpayers are looking at. We had a workshop with the assessors of the city that are talking about hitting the residential people again with another increase in valuation. So I totally appreciate it. I don't know where the money, I haven't sat through all the budgets, and I appreciate you clearing up the ESSER, I understand that a little bit better, but the taxpayers aren't just looking at a $70 increase on this mill rate, they're looking at an increase in valuation that the assessors are talking about doing, so, and I realize you guys know that, but I feel like it's my responsibility to say that this is a big deal, and I think there's more, like you said, there's more coming next year and the year after, because nothing's getting any cheaper, and so I think we do have to, is it 5%? Is that possible? I don't know. I don't know, but I think we have to think about it.
Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's the dollar value if we say go from 5.4 to 5?
Round numbers,
It's
100,000.
It's $80,000.
Yeah.
Is that right, around 100,000?
Yeah, about 100.
Other comments? Councilor Whiting?
I'd concur with Councilor Platts that that's a worthwhile goal. It's fairly small, but I'm thinking about, from the perspective of the school department, they're short of staff. They've had recruitment problems. Part of that's pay, part of it's inability to find housing nearby. So they've got their challenges, and I think they've done a pretty good job here in terms of the budget, and they've done a fantastic job in terms of performance, school performance. And one of the things that attracts people to Auburn is a good school system. So if we shortchange the school department, we're shortchanging our city in the long term.
Did I hear correctly that you believe that this special ed deficit that's been put on us in this is going to be coming back next year, that same amount? Is that
Counselor, I can't predict what the amount will be. I can predict that the legislation will stay in place, so that we will continue to pay the calendar rate for students as opposed to the day rate, which is what we used to pay.
So that reimbursement, we had talked about it,
Mark,
about the
do you wanna-
reimbursement situation?
We may see it in increased reimbursement in the future, but there's a lag in seeing that, so
So that's not something we can
we
plan
can't
for.
bank on that, right?
Other questions or comments from the council? Yeah, I think, you've heard from Councilor Whiting, Councilor Platts. I would agree that capping it at 5% on the city side, I think would be something that the school board should take into consideration in their deliberations. So, anything else from the council?
I guess the last thing I just want to add, and you brought it up about the fund balance and how much is being spent from the fund balance. As we go through the process of the school budget being passed at the school side and then the city side, it is important to continue that conversation of what happens next year without those funds in the fund balance. And so, it's worth saying out loud on record here that if we aren't gonna, if we're gonna be, I don't want to say we're gonna be easy here by asking for, a decrease of this amount as opposed to this amount, but next year we may have to come out with slightly sharper teeth, and we may, because it's going to be difficult to replace those lost funds. And I just think that's something worth saying now. We've all got another year and a half on the council together, so we're going to be presented with this budget again next year, and that's something to think about today.
Yeah, and I think that's something to think about. As Dr. Brown said, it's very difficult to predict what would happen next year. There's going to be lots of variables. There's things in the legislature right now that are in the final days affecting mandatory increases for non-educational staff. I'm sure there's many more of these that the school department's tracking, but I think every year is going to be a challenge, and next year is not going to be any less of a challenge than today.
If I might, Mayor Harmon, that's exactly where we're going, because should that legislation pass, that would be $150,000. We're talking about bringing ed tech salaries and support stuff up to $21. That would be $150,000, what I call new money, to the school department that we would have to pay. So it is a very real cost. Thank you.
And in fine state fashion, there's not going to be an increase in funding to cover that. The the general purpose aid to education isn't going to go up. It's just a mandate to change the pay level. Any last comments from the council? See, yeah, go ahead, Councilor
I just
Nolan.
want to make sure that you guys are aware that I realize that you're sitting in the same seats that we are, we're practically volunteers. And I just want you to know that I appreciate what you guys are doing and understand, I'm not being critical of you guys, and I understand that we're all trying to do the right things. And so I just want to put that out there, so.
Dr. Brown, thank you very much to you and your
Thank you.
staff. I think the school department has had some great progress in the last few years, and we're all appreciative of that and the hard work that the school department and the school board puts in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next item will be the city manager's budget presentation.
So if you look at the red tab, the mayor and council tab, that's where all of the materials are for this. The first red tab.
Page 6.
Thank you for putting my book together, Kelsey.
You didn't think I did it, right? Mayor, council, just a few things. We're still at a different level, just like the school committees, school department rather is going to go back to the school committee, continue working on it. We're still in that process too. So the budget message for the city manager's budget message, you won't receive that until I feel we're at a good place to lock it in. By charter, we have until April 30th to be able to do that, where I have to submit the budget by the city manager to the council. So we still have we have another workshop that we have scheduled for April 8th. We could still, depending on where the council is coming in at, we could still do another workshop on the 16th and any special workshops that you'd like, because we really have until that April 30th. The driver to this and the challenge that you will have is that, and we talked about this before, but it really comes to when the school committee submits their adopted budget to you, and then you need to adopt that by a certain date so that that can now be available to the voters, right? So that's that push that we have right now that's kind of dictating our schedule a bit. Doesn't mean we have to stay to it. We could go off script and the city could still keep working on their budget, even though you've approved the school budget. The first time we've done that, it's a little different, but we can do it. So just keep in mind that there's a driver with that, and that driver is what you have in the ordinance as it pertains to adopting both the city and school budget that meets the CPIU. If you were to go over that, it would require a supermajority, five voters of the council to be able to do that. While we're talking about CPIU, last year, I think, we really did a good job within the budget. CPIU was a lot higher than where we came in at. And part of that was what I've been talking with you all about, is that we had numerous collective bargaining units that had not settled their contracts. You're seeing those, some of them 2 years worth of contracts, you're seeing them now for the first time in this budget. So if you were to take last year's increase, the 3.7%, and just what I have as a draft right now, that you saw in your book, and Councilor Platts referred to it, was the 8.5%, right? So if you were to just take those two, that equals 12%, right? Take that 12%, and you were to combine both the CPIU for last year and the CPIU for this year, it's 12%. So in the last 2 years, we're coming in right where CPIU, as was outlined back in 2016, actually I think it was approved in 2015, by the councilors at that time, to stay within that. We're doing that, but we had a lag, and that lag for us was, as Dr. Brown mentioned, the majority of our budget is our personnel. And so when we have 7 units that hadn't negotiated their contracts yet, you're seeing those all right now in this budget. So that's why you're seeing that big shift. If those were negotiated and set in place, and we were to hit that 8% last year, we would be coming in, and you'll see it as we talk about drivers, we would be coming in right where CPIU needed to be. But keep in mind, that's a combined between city. City includes our debt service, and it includes intergovernmental, which is county tax, as well as the joint agencies. And it includes library. So all those factor in when we talk about city and then school. So it's really looking at, on your summary sheet, it's what that tax levy is. So currently, combined, city, school, intergovernmental, the draft that I have before you is 8.5%. So that's clearly over the CPIU for this current year. And so that's something we'll work through as we have conversations about that, and we take a look at how that lands. So 4.1% is where the CPIU is currently for this year. And like I said, last year was 8%. So what I have for you is building off from our previous conversations that we've had, and I have some follow-ups. A couple things that we wanted to identify was the budget drivers. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've outlined where are the fixed budget drivers. And those fixed means that those are passed down. So that's going to be your debt service, right? That's fixed. A previous council approved a CIP that's now driving that debt service for this year. And so GA services, I'm calling it fixed because it's based on what we believe we're going to spend. You could reduce it, we could still go over it, and we'd still have to make up the funds for it. But keep in mind, even though you see that fixed number that you're going to see in here of 720,000, that's the increase, 720,000 just for GA services. There is a 70% offset of revenue that comes in with that. So that's just keep in mind when you look at that. Solid waste and recycling is the other fixed cost for us as we move forward. County tax, and then our water and sewer. So those are what I'm identifying as some fixed costs for you. I'll have Kelsey hand those out for you. What you'll see in the handout when we talk about the drivers, workforce is clearly our driving budget. As I mentioned before, those previous collective bargaining units that were all adopted and approved by City Council, those costs are now coming due this year. And so when you look at workforce, you're seeing a $2.3 million increase in workforce. The actual operating increases for the city, all the budgets, all the departments, if you just take a look at the operating alone, it's increasing by 210,000. So to balance out some of the department budgets, they've reduced their operating costs. Collectively, though, we're at 210. Some of that has to do with the fact that we were on multiple year contracts for fuel. And so we had a fixed rate for fuel. Now we are under a new rate, so that shows some changes within our fuel. And then obviously other utilities and things we'll see. What I had mentioned before to you was that really felt like we needed to work in an operating, capital operating expense. What this is doing is taking what normally would have been $500,000 that would have been in bonding, and those are for what I feel is really not capital expenditures. Those are vehicles that we replace every single year. Those are some really small $10,000, $20,000 items that just shouldn't be in. We shouldn't be bonding and paying that interest rate over multiple years. So I worked in. This is the first year for this. So I worked in $500,000 in the operating budget, and so you'll see that in that line item. Intergovernmental, separate from county tax, is increasing $156,000 based on my recommendations. You could take a look at this and change it. I have reduced LA 911's budget. I did take a look at their budget. I took a look at their fund balance. I think there's room that they could either do they're introducing some additional positions within the budget. So I do think there's some room there. I'll work with, depending on your feedback, I'll work with the city of Lewiston when we start moving towards that. But right now, in my draft budget, you'll see a reduction in 911 services costs. The library, when I had my preliminary meeting with the library and provided a try to hit at this 5%, that's what they were able to do. They came in with a 5%. You got that full report and the breakdown on that. And so theirs is 61,000. To go back to intergovernmental, I do have the number for LATC. That's a number that we hadn't had when we had been talking about the budget intergovernmental. LATC is our transit bus system. And so I have that amount. It's in your budget now. So if you were to look at your pages further down, you're going to see where it's the breakdown for intergovernmental. We have that in there. What I was able to do with LATC is that we had surplus within LATC that came available after we had already approved the budget. What I did was I kept that amount the same because I knew we would be anticipating an increase in the LATC budget because just like what you heard with school, what you hear with us, there was some CARES money that was provided that you had to use as a federal pass down, had to use those federal dollars under the same similar model as ARPA and CARES, that reduced our budget. I let that ride because we had already budgeted that amount. I'm using those surpluses to bring down what the total increase is. So if you were to look at the total increase that LATC will have in the materials I'm going to forward to you, you'll see where the number's higher. It's reduced in our budget only because I know I have that carryover that we'll be able to carry over this year. And so within FY23. So their total is, you're going to see, is about 450,000. Now, if all things stay the same way for LATC, and we're looking at that future year, there's no more carryover money. There's no over money for this year. That means we're going to be upwards of 600 plus in that budget for next year. So that's something that we're going to have to keep in mind. We are working on negotiating a one-year extension with WMTS, which is the bus provider, a one-year extension that was built into the contract, 2 one-year extensions. This is the last of the 2 one-year extensions. So we'll work that through. The budget's going to land about where you see it in the draft. It'll come in roughly where we're at here, where I'm proposing. So that's where we're at on that. But to know that we have a budget driver coming down for next year that we're really going to need to take a look at transit and see how we're going to manage that. The debt service, I think I've already talked about those. So you see that total increase is $5,877,895. Those fixed numbers are coming in at $2,581,910. That leaves the number for you to work with is that $3,295,985. Offsetting that increase is the increase that we have in revenue, the non-tax revenue, which is $2,111,112. So those are the numbers. Those are those numbers I think for you to work with as we move forward with discussions about the budget. That's where we're at. So the other document I wanted to provide you is, Kelsey, can you hand this out?
Yeah.
This is the position change, only because I know we're short for time. We're going to have April 8th where we're going to work through this again, but I want you to have the document so that we can, when we come together for the next workshop, you'll have some of this information. What you have on here is the department salary requests for the positions. The new positions on here that are not tied to any other revenues that we bring in or offsets that we might be setting up within the budget. I chunked these out so you can take a look at them. Those first 6 positions, those are directly related to funding within the new budget. There's no offset to these. These are direct impacts on the budget. The GA eligibility coordinator, that's as a result of a department that used to distribute close to 150,000 is now distributing upwards of 800,000. There's a workload that's needed to offset that. That's that position. That's a current position we have right now. We had to fund it to keep the requirements that we have within GA rules on making sure you're meeting requests that come in within a 24-hour business open period. And so there's some mandates that we have there. So that position was immediately filled.
Is that one of the 3 current positions? We went from one GA position to three. There's 3 employees today.
The second one is combined, and a lot of that is picked up through the CDBG funds.
Correct.
So
Right.
it's within the
So-
grant.
So this is funding one of those 3 that we had to add in this current year?
No, one of them was already in, those 3 positions. One was already in the budget. One is picked up through CDBG funds, and this one is the one that's hitting the budget. So there's only one that's actually hitting this budget.
Yeah, okay, that was my point.
Okay.
So the new one we're adding isn't like we're adding to the workforce that's working today. It's
Right.
now funding on a forward-looking basis one of the 3 that's there because of the dramatic increase
That's right.
in GA. We had to have additional staff to
Yep.
administer it.
That's correct. Yep, sorry, yes.
Phil,
So they're already working for us.
That position's filled, they're already working for us, that's correct.
Phil, sorry.
Yeah.
We're anticipating a further growth. Are we
So-
in GA?
Yeah, we talked with CDBG, Business Community Development. That's the department that oversees GA. We're seeing a bit of a leveling, and so the big spike came as a result of what Glenn had shared before regarding the state funds that had left, and so we're seeing that leveling. We're pretty certain the numbers that we have right now, this is where we're going to come in at moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's similar from what I've heard at the Mayor's Coalition meetings about other similarly situated cities, what they are estimating going forward.
Thanks.
All right, the next position was the executive assistant within finance. Kelsey already talked about that. And you look at the manager recommendations, a lot of these positions, I am recommending hiring these positions in the manager's recommendation. However, I might be delaying the start of it to reduce the amounts slightly. So you'll see the executive assistant, I am recommending that with the delayed hiring for 6 months. The senior appraiser, that is a position that as a result of FY '23, there was funding that was left over because of a vacancy within their department. And we're anticipating that workload shift within the assessing office, especially as we start moving towards the revaluation. Anticipating that, we carried over those FY '23 funds, we filled that position. That position currently, as of today, is vacant. So Kelsey talked about that when she did her presentation. That position, that individual took a town manager's job, I think, somewhere. And so that position currently is vacant. We have it posted. I will not move forward with that until I get a really good sense from you, council, on whether or not that position will continue within the budget. This is one where I anticipate the work demand will require that 4th position. And so that's why I'm recommending we move forward with that without any delay. The next position is the software tech, as what was being mentioned before regarding ARPA. So we had one position. So within the 13 million that we had for ARPA funds, we had one position that was in the ARPA funds that carry over into this budget, and that was the software tech. And so that software technician position is the one that is working primarily on the types of platforms like we mentioned regarding Munis, regarding the new SmartGov system, which is replacing the EnerGov system that we've had for 18 years probably, as well as some of the other new software platforms. So that's that position. There's a person currently in that position, and so I'm recommending we move forward with that with no delay. And that position was funded under ARPA for 2 years. That was FY '23 and FY '24. That position salary was covered. So this is the first year that it's coming into the budget. There's a non-sworn position within the police department. That's the position that the chief mentioned regarding processing all of the body-worn cameras, processing all of the paperwork that's required that has to upload to the district attorney system and get those videos all uploaded. By having this position, those officers can go and be redeployed back on the streets a lot faster. So I'm recommending that position, however, with a delay. Some of this is because I know where we are with our hiring practice. I know once we start posting, you know, all the other positions that we have, that we just continually have. I know some of these will take a little bit of time to get in place, draft out job descriptions, get that all stood up. And so, so I'm recommending a 6-month delay there, as well as the officer. Now, when I say previously approved, when the chief talked about this position, he said a frozen position. That means his authorized sworn staff was at 55. Through budgets last year, because of hiring, 2 of those positions were frozen. And so when I say previously approved, his authorized sworn amount is at 55. So it's funding that authorized amount back up, but again, with a delayed in hiring, knowing the process, again, selection. If this person has to go to the academy, we've got some room there that we could work on that. That person is the traffic enforcement position that's under the PACE unit. So that's where that position comes in. So those are those positions. That next grouping of positions that I had talked with you about, and the departments had talked about, and I talked about providing you some kind of bridge here so you know what's the impact if those do not get funded. So the city planner, the long-range city planner position, that position will be 100% appropriated within the TIF appropriation. So within your revenue, you have $1.5 million that comes in from TIF funds. Those are for administrative costs. This position would be included in there. I did delay the start again by 6 months because when you approve the budget, it starts by July. Now we're talking about the summer. That gives us time to really bring somebody in midway during the fall and start that process, hiring process. The deputy chief of EMS, that's the position that was in the fire department budget that you saw. That's a new position. However, it's offset with the grant funding that's coming in through the EMS grant. So the EMS grant is now covering the EMS coordinator, which was in the budget. This amount with the $56,700 plus the fringe is now covered under, will offset. That money was already in the budget for the EMS coordinator. The EMS coordinator can now be paid for under the grant, so the deputy chief is now filling with those funds. So that's that offset amount that's already in the budget. You're going to see this in your budget documents. When you look under revenue, you're going to see under the fire department's revenue, you're going to see a revenue line item there. Part of it is for this position. The other part is for enhancing that third ambulance position, or third ambulance apparatus, and staffing that the chief talked about in his presentation. So it's about 130?
130,000.
130,000 that's in that new revenue line item. The mechanic.
Phil, sorry.
Yes.
The EMS coordinator now covered by the grant. How long is that grant?
So it's multiple years. It's something that we can continue applying for if we want to keep using it. There's restrictions on what you can use it for, rather. EMS is that. It's an EMS grant, so as long as it's covered there, we're good. So, and we'll keep applying it to that position. Mechanics, so this is under the Public Works. We talked about adding that additional mechanic. That will allow for the additional fire vehicle repairs, apparatus repairs being done by PW. That mechanic allows that to take place. We reduced the fire budget as a result of that, and so that's covering these costs. Only partial. I think, Kelsey, we just have to get the full amount that we shifted over. It's a partial amount, but I'll get that for you. The equipment operator, we talked about the striping. Again, this isn't the lane striping, but this is all the handwork that's required for crosswalks within the city, as well as the turning arrows, all that work. So this is just bringing in those 3 new positions for just a few months to get them in place within this budget so that they'll be prepared and ready when the work starts for the FY26 striping contract. So if we don't do this, then we'll add upwards of 120,000, 125,000 probably in FY26 back into the budget to cover that cost. There.
So it's basically a net zero, meaning that the reduction in the contractor's rate for the hand striping will offset these fully, these three positions?
Just shy of that, but what my thought is, so I believe it will, because it'll also reduce our overtime for winter maintenance, because those positions will be applied into winter maintenance, so it's gonna wash.
Right, and potentially it would allow more painting cycles, is that correct?
So by doing this, we'll be able to have 2 cycles of painting of all crosswalks. What we're always behind on is, especially when school starts, we really try to focus just on those walking routes for school first, but that usually means we're never getting the rest of the crosswalks done before snow flies. So it'll allow for 2 cycles of painting of those crosswalks and turn lines. All right. And then the ELHS, this is the high school CIP manager. This is what we're calling, I guess, a current position, meaning that it's currently the funding is available within this FY24, which we're in right now, FY24 budget. We're going through the process of selecting someone for that position. This is money that, as a result of the MOU that Mark talked about with the school department, so part of that revenue that's coming in through the school, which is $113,000 and some change, that position will offset this position. And so that's how we're applying those funds. So those are the 5 positions that are dictated or have some type of revenue or expense offset. And then there's 3 more positions. 2 of them are new positions that were presented by the department managers in their presentation. One was a new detective within school. I'm not recommending for this year that we move forward with that. And then the additional equipment operator with PW, I'm not recommending we go forward with that. I'd like to see what those 3 new equipment operators will do for us for winter and see how we need to see what those numbers look like to see if we really have that demand that's going to come in for that position. So I'm not recommending that. And then the other position is a recreation program specialist. This is a current position. However, it's vacant currently. And with the PAL Center closing, shifting to Hasty, which will be at the rec center, I just don't think we're going to have the same amount of kids that'll be willing to get on a shuttle and go down to Hasty from that neighborhood. So I can see our numbers of kids that we're serving probably reduced a bit. So I'm recommending us not fund that position. The PAL Center won't be open until the FY26 budget. So I'm recommending that we not fund that position. That position was also part of the grab and go program. So that they had a combination within that position. And the manager's recommendation currently as it sits, I'm not recommending that we move forward with that. That's a program that, again, we set up during ARPA. Funds were coming in through ARPA. And that means that $70,000 for that program plus the position would hit this budget. And so I'm not recommending we move forward with that. I am working with Glenn within Business and Community Development to take a look and say who out there is providing, that can be providing some of these services that we could enhance that, but not have the city run a food program, ultimately. It was needed during COVID. I feel we're beyond that now, and that shouldn't be something we continually run, is my recommendation. So those are all the positions. So you'll see the department salary request was almost 1.1 million. Where I'm coming in at for these changes is 668,000. The ones that do not have any ties to other revenue or expenses is 348,000 is what we're looking for there. I'm going to stop there. Some of the other pieces I think we can pick up when we do our next workshop, but that just gets you more information on where we are currently. You can see where the draft is right now. Just like for the school, it's going to be helpful on that April 8th meeting for you to come forward with what specifically, because we're really at services. So because of what I talked about regarding some of those fixed costs, we're now at services. So when you think about a reduction, think about what service that you are like, okay, I think as a city, we do prioritization, what services do we not want to provide? Because that's really what it's dictating. And so when you take a look at our increase, just like the superintendent said, it's people. We provide services and it's people. You saw that with the breakdown. It's only $200,000 of operating increase. That's not a big increase for a 55 million, well, for the school side, 20, that's on the tax levy, somewhere around 20 something, but city expenses, over 50 million. 200,000 is not a big increase. And so it's really coming down to personnel, which then deliver the services. But any questions? I think we got a couple minutes, but.
Yeah, question, Councilor Geary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you were talking a second ago about people and stuff. I'm all for people and helping them. I'm totally against doing away with the grab-and-go grocery program. Before it became the grab-and-go, it was grab-and-go meal program, which was before COVID. It morphed into it, and then it just got bigger. Over 200 people, more, almost close to 300 people, most of them families, a lot of seniors are depending on this program. And this is one program, for the amount of money that was put out there, I'm going to fight for because they need it. A lot of them don't have a way to go to the food banks and pantries. And the PALS staff, they work their hearts out to bring people the groceries they need that don't have the transportation.
So rec staff, I just want to make sure we're clear. I want to make sure we're separating out the functions. So it's actually rec staff. Sometimes we say that this is a PAL program. It's not a PAL program. It just happens to be within the PAL building because we have the full kitchen there. But it's really, and then we use some of those, the same people, but it's not while they're providing PAL services. And so this is really a rec program that's being funded through rec that's delivering that service. And I understand what Councilor Gary's saying. We have people that are getting services that they need. I understand that. It's just whether or not is that something that we want to provide continuation of ARPA dollars to continue providing that service. And then that'll be up for the council to decide how you want to deliver that.
Yeah, so unlike our discussion with the school budget, here it's really down to the line items, right? So we have to start the council meeting here in a couple minutes, so I would, my advice to the council would be to go through the manager's request for, look through this for next Monday night. If you want reductions, I think it would be helpful not just to come in like we did with the school department with a dollar figure or percentage, but identify areas in the budget, services that would be reduced to meet that cut. And to Councilor Gary's point, there's probably other things in here as well that aren't being included in the budget. If you want to include those, be clear about the service that you would like to have added back into the budget. So we'll adjourn the workshop and reconvene at 7 p.m. in the council chambers for the regular council meeting.
Thanks. Those books are yours, so take them. I won't be adding anything to them this week. So.
The April 1st, 2024 regular meeting of the Auburn City Council will be called to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If we can have the councilors introduce themselves, starting with Councilor Geary.
Good evening, I'm Belinda Gary. I'm an Auburn City Councilor at Large.
Good evening, Rick Whiting, Ward 1 City Councilor.
Good evening, Tim Cowan, Ward 2 City Councilor.
Steve Milks, Ward 3 City Councilor.
Jeff Harmon, Mayor.
Ben Wisner, City Councilor, Ward 4.
Leroy Walker, City Council, Ward 5.
Adam Platt, City Council at Large.
Phil Kroll, City Manager.
Thank you. We have one consent item tonight, setting the date for the school budget validation referendum for July 11th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Cowan. Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next agenda item will be approval of the minutes for the regular council meeting of March 18th, 2024. Are there errors or corrections? Not seeing any, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilor Walker,
Second?
seconded by Councilor Cowan. Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative with 1 abstention, the motion is adopted. The next order of business is approval of the minutes for the special council meeting of March 25th, 2024. Are there errors or corrections? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Whiting. Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is communication, presentations, and recognitions. Our first item tonight is recognition of Camden Goddard. He's the 2024 recipient of the Maine Recreation and Park Association Volunteer of the Year. If Camden, if you want to come up.
And I think, Mayor, if Sarah could come up, Sarah's going to just
That would be
read a
great.
little bit about this nominee, actually a recipient, not nominee.
Yeah, you can come stand with me too.
Recipient.
Yeah.
This isn't our first rodeo.
So Sarah, I was going to read your comments. Is that what you're going to present?
Yeah, I have
Yes,
them too.
okay,
Does
so
that work?
Go ahead. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Good evening. For those of you that haven't met me yet, my name is Sarah Parker. I am a rec specialist for the rec department. I run our family enrichment and child care programs, including Unified Sports, which we had started 2 years ago, right? Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Unified programs are athletic opportunities for youth with physical and intellectual disabilities. And I'm honored to get a chance to tell you about the opportunity we had a couple weeks ago, or I had, to award my friend Camden Goddard with the Maine Parks and Rec Association Citizen Volunteer of the Year Award at our spring conference. Camden is our youngest volunteer at the rec and is also now the youngest recipient of this award in MRPI history, which is kind of a big deal. He is the most loyal, dedicated, and passionate person to have as part of our Unified programs. His older brother, Jackson, is a participant in both of our Unified soccer and basketball programs at the rec. And before our soccer season, our first ever soccer season, their mom asked me if she and her youngest son, Camden, could help out. And I quickly said yes, as volunteers are an integral part of this program, and I needed all the help I could get. The first time I met Camden, I was quite simply blown away. He was patient, warm, and supportive, and his calm demeanor welcomed our athletes who were apprehensive or hesitant. And this encouragement and patience made a huge difference in our athletes, for many of whom had never experienced rec sports or athletics in general. And while most volunteers tend to stick to the athlete they know or feel most comfortable with,
Camden always did the exact opposite. Almost every week, he picked somebody new, to spend the session with. And while most 10-year-olds might be timid or anxious in chaotic settings like ours, he was always unafraid to jump in. And I can't forget to mention that in addition to all of the time he spends with us at the rec, he also volunteers at our local Little League's unified baseball program, Buddy Ball. So basically, Camden's weekends are full if anybody's looking for a volunteer. He not only makes close connections with our athletes, but more importantly, he gives them an opportunity to succeed independently. He is known to stop the game during soccer so that each and every player can get a chance to score a goal and hear the crowd cheer for them. He will take any athlete by the hand and work with them one-on-one until they finally, after weeks of trying, drain the ball on a regulation hoop. And to wrap it up, Camden is just an incredible kid. His ability to make everyone feel loved, seen, and supported is admirable, and he is unafraid to speak up for those who cannot, and he makes certain that everyone gets their chance to shine. He is everyone's favorite supporter and is a true asset to all of the unified programs in our entire community. We are so incredibly proud of him and know that while he hates all this recognition and attention, he is without a doubt deserving of it. Thank you.
Camden. Sarah, why don't you and come on. Yeah. So, Sarah, come on up here with us. We'll get a picture. Yeah, I don't have a microphone. So, Camden, we have a couple tokens here from the City of Auburn presented to you on behalf of the City Council. The first one is an Auburn Challenge coin. It's given to people to live up to the motto of the City of Auburn, no steps back. We really are appreciative of your volunteer actions. You're a great example to people in the community, not only of other youth, but of people of all ages. And the other one is a city seal. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. The next item of business is communication. It's a request from the Lake Stewards of Maine for funding for the City of Auburn for FY 2024 for $1,500. We'll refer that to the city manager for consideration in the preparation of his budget. We'll move on to the first open session. If there's any members of the community that would like to address the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda, please approach the podium, provide your name and address. Not seeing any, we'll close the open session and we'll move on to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is Ordinance 010102-2024, amending Chapter 60 of the zoning ordinance to include an effective date and applicability date of Ordinance 2611202023. This is a public hearing and a second reading. A reminder to the council and members of the public, this was adopted by the City Council on first reading and referred to the Planning Board. The Planning Board requested additional information and the council passed a resolve and forwarded the additional information to the Planning Board. The item is now back for public hearing and second reading. I'll open the public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to testify on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Cowan, seconded by Councilor Whiting. Discussion by the council? Is the council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor?
Are we in favor of doing what?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a roll call, so the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Gary?
Yes.
Councilor Whiting?
Yes.
Councilor Cowan?
Yes.
Counselor Miltz,
No.
Counselor Weisner,
No.
Counselor Walker,
No.
Counselor Platts.
Yes.
4 having voted in the affirmative.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
point of order. May I please back this up? I want to vote no. I want to change my yes to no.
So you're voting no? So 3 voting in the affirmative and 4 voting in the negative. The motion fails. The next order of business is Order 3903182024, disposition of building at 46 Fair Street under dangerous building statute. This is a public hearing. This is a postponed item from the previous regular council meeting, and there is a motion on the table for passage, having been moved by Councilor Walker and seconded by Councilor Weisner. Mr. Manager, is there an update on this item?
I'll have John come up. I think, John, you're the one reporting on this? You and Chris, probably? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark, I did not see you in the background. So, our attorney, Mark Bauer, is here, so I thought everybody was stepping in for you, Mark, so thanks for coming.
I think, again, Mark Bauer from Jensen Baird. I think I'll just open it up with just a summary of where we are. Oh, sorry. I forgot it. You have to hold it down, right? Okay. Mark Bauer from Jensen Baird. I just thought I would start off by providing an update, sort of summary where we left things off last time, what's happened since then. I think the council wanted to postpone the item for a couple weeks till tonight's meeting to, allow me to update the findings in the order with the testimony and so forth that happened at the last meeting, and also to provide the property owner with a couple weeks to engage with staff on a plan for moving forward with this property, and coming up with some parameters and timeframes for getting the work done there. And I think that the public hearing may have been closed last time, but I'm not sure about that. So to the extent the council wants to hear additional testimony, probably would need to have a motion to reopen the public hearing. If the council would like to hear from staff and or the property owner on sort of what's happened in the interim. Because I think you were at the point of last meeting had done a motion, a second, and engaged in discussion, and then postponed to this meeting. So, but with that, there are staff members here and the property owners here as well to respond to questions that the council may have as to what's occurred over the last 2 weeks and sort of what the recommendation is going forward. So,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to open engagement with, right?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Second.
It's been a motion by Councilor Milk, seconded by Councilor Walker to reopen the public hearing. Is there any discussion by the council? Ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The motion's adopted.
so maybe I'll turn it over to Chris Bowden on what's occurred in the last 2 weeks.
Good evening, everybody. So, following the last council meeting, we had a meeting with Mr. Ahid. I apologize. To set some parameters on what we expect over the course of this last couple of weeks. He did have the yard cleaned up, the dumpster's still there, full of trash, probably 90%. I did notice underneath the rear structure facing the water, there's still a lot of asphalt shingles and things like that underneath there. But, you know, there was a good faith effort in cleaning that up. This is awful. We did schedule an inspection for this past Wednesday. I received an email that morning trying to cancel the inspection. He wasn't going to be available due to storm damage. I'm not quite sure. It wasn't this property. It must have been another one. Jennifer and I still decided to go, with his permission, to go look at what we could look at. and it was determined that the section of the building facing the water does require a structural engineer or a design professional to assess, evaluate, and create assembly details for how that section of the building is going to stand. I am a little concerned at the condition of it there, but we did relay that over to the property owner. We did set up another inspection for the following day. I sent an email to make sure that they had the appropriate tools to allow us access to the building. When we got there, the building still had plywood all over it, and they had accessed the interior of the building through a window. I didn't find that it would be safe to access it without assistance from somebody else, so I declined to enter the building. It was roughly 52-inch jump into it, and I didn't think it was worth it, so we didn't conduct that inspection. It made me think, one thing I did realize is because they could access that house through a window, the building's still unsecured. So that is a little bit of a concern that I do have. But that's pretty much the chain of events that's happened over the last couple of weeks.
I think the most important piece here is that, you know, if there's a good faith effort by the landowner, there should be some type of financial guarantee that's really wrapped into this agreement to make sure that, you know, we can, you know, get the building back to a livable space.
Are there comments from the property owner?
Yes, so, sorry, because of the storm, there were some delays on my end, but as I sent the documents over to Eric and everybody, I have, I think the biggest thing was the financial aspect of it, and I have sent over receipts and invoices that are prepaid for the full electrical work, the landscaping that was done. There's going to be a full invoice tomorrow, paid in full for the plumbing work and the heating work that is required. And then I also sent over a detailed estimate of the carpentry work that they wanted broken down into exactly what stages and everything that needs to be done. Like I said to Eric and them, I'm not looking for handouts. I'm looking for every 2 weeks we can check in, see where things are. If there is delays on my end, if I don't communicate those in a timely manner, feel free to move forward with the demolition of the building. I've also provided, I said, bank statements that should cover well in excess of the renovations that's required. If not, I can provide a full guarantee for whatever renovations needed, both with collateral and cash as well. The line of credit they were looking for just wasn't an option at the bank. There was like a 2-month turnaround time or whatever, but like I said, whatever financial guarantee or whatever timeline that the city wants to put that they feel like mine is not attainable, I'm happy to agree and move forward with, you know, whatever needs to get the property done.
Are there comments from the public? If so, please approach the podium, provide your name and address.
Hi, I'm Martin Doherty, 194 Oak Hill Road, about 3 houses away from the property that we're talking about. I'm disappointed. I thought that this was going to be a much more clearer effort, and hearing the fact that he wasn't showing up for inspections that he was aware of, didn't allow access to the building when he had a chance to allow access to the building. It just seems like the same story over and over and over again. And unfortunately, I don't agree with moving forward with renovating this project. Like I said 2 weeks ago, I think demolition is the way to go. It just seems like the same, like I said the last time, he's absentee now. Is he going to be absentee later on as a landlord when he's selling this property? You know, it's not trustworthy, basically. Thank you.
I live here, by the way. I don't live in Vegas.
Any other member of the public that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion by the council. Council Milk.
Yeah, sir, what's your total estimate, in your opinion, to the renovation needed on that house?
My personal estimate to renovate the house, what is already existing, all the work that's already been done, is less than $100,000. That's my personal opinion. That includes all the materials, all the labor, the heating, the plumbing. Again, I've already prayed for the majority of that front to show good faith, but that's my personal opinion.
Council Cowan.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just to follow up on that, I think I'm recalling somewhere around 60,000 was the estimate in what you provided 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so the $60,000, when I went back to the city and I talked to them, they wanted all the materials and they wanted more detail and they wanted me to put buffers into the estimate. That is what the estimate is, but again, I've paid the majority of that up front already. I've already paid for the electric, I've already paid for the plumbing, I've already paid for landscaping, and I can show you a deposit for half of the carpentry work if you want that.
But what you're talking about in terms of having paid is what based on your estimate, not based on what my recollection was that the city planning staff felt was not adequately a full amount that would be required to fix that building.
Yeah, exactly. So that's when I went and talked to the city last week. They wanted more. They felt like the property needed more work, and so we've increased the budget, more detailed and everything, and put buffers in to make it more. Again, the $100,000 is the total cost of the project. I've already paid down more than 50% of that already. I pay that up front to show good faith going forward. That's all.
Council Walker.
I think there was a mention that there was partly a decking on the back or something that was supposed to have been removed. Was that removed?
No, so the exterior work was just to clean out outside. The deck part, I did not want to touch because we have a structural engineer coming tomorrow, probably around 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whenever we get up here, to take a look at that foundation side of it. The original was supposed to come on Thursday, but because of the storm coming, we pushed it earlier. So depending on what they say tomorrow about the structure, we'll have more information. But that back deck is only 2 2x4s and they'll be removed this week.
Other questions, Council Milk?
If it's structurally unsound, that number's, I don't think 100,000 is enough. If you're looking inside floors and all of that stuff, that it's a massive number. And if it's structurally unsound, which our staff believes that it is, that's a massive number. That's 100,000 easy 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, the structural is only one small section of the house is what he's referring to. Again, my personal opinion is different, but when the structural engineer goes tomorrow, his opinion is professional and what we'll do. But again, I've renovated, over 50 projects these past 2 years, and the cost to renovate a house, just flooring, painting, carpentry work is really not that substantial. The foundation work is a question mark. I'll concede to that, but whenever he says tomorrow, I'll share the report with everybody, obviously, but it's a very small portion of the house.
Other questions or comments from the council? Council Geary. Council Whiting.
Yeah, just a comment. I looked at it today and I was pleased to see that the site was mostly cleaned up. I didn't see what Chris referred to under the deck, but the bulk of it's cleaned up. The dumpster is full. I did note looking from the north, it looks like a perfectly fine building, but I'm a little concerned that one would put vinyl siding on a building and new windows before confirming that the structure is sound. To me, you start with the structure and the roof, and then you move to things like vinyl siding and windows later.
Council Geary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to thank you for keeping your word and getting the dumpster out there and cleaning up the yard. But I'm also still very concerned with the findings that our good permitting code enforcement has found. I'm afraid that before we take care of the heart of the issues, the outside is going to be done and the cosmetic part, so that you'll never see what is really the heart and the organs of the building that should have been taken care of. My worst fear is for you to put in lots of money, and then if you don't live in it, to sell to somebody, and they get stuck with a property that could be dangerous to them in the long run, a few years down the road.
Yeah, just to speak on that real quick. So the inside of the house is completely gutted, so you can see all the walls and everything. And obviously going forward, there will be periodic inspections, I assume, from the city to verify all the work and make sure it's done correctly and it's safe going forward. Regarding the comment about the starting the vinyl siding, when we originally started the project, the person that looked at the foundation didn't seem to be an issue, but again, I'll let the structural engineer look at it tomorrow and see what he says.
Mr. Manager.
Attorney Bauer, could you now maybe walk through with the council the amended order that's in front of them and why the change of to the 60 days and give them their options of what they have next to do, and then also within this order, what are those findings of facts to be able to move this order forward?
Sure. Thank you for that. So in your packet is an order of demolition, which is a 2-page document. Attached to that is Exhibit A, which is the findings of fact that go with the order of demolition. So what has been drafted and is proposed pursuant to what the staff's recommendation is before you as a 60-day order. So basically the order finds that the structure is a dangerous building in accordance with the statutory definition of that term. And that is 4 paragraphs down. That's sort of the first 3 paragraphs are kind of the background. The 4th one gets to the point, in terms of that structure is adjudged to be a dangerous building. And then the next paragraph after that is what I'm talking about with regard to what the result from this is that it says, now therefore is hereby ordered that the structure located on the property be removed within 60 days from the date of the order, that the removal comply with all state and local requirements, and that the property be left in a safe and sanitary condition, or that the nuisance be abated in a manner satisfactory to the city within 60 days from the date of this order, provided, however, that city staff is authorized to delay the disposal of the building if the owner or any party in interest has demonstrated the ability and willingness to satisfactorily rehabilitate the building. So the 60-day time period comes from the fact that that will bring this to basically 60 days from tonight is roughly June 1st. What's been submitted by the property owner is a plan that would finish work by June 1st. So the idea here is that if you take him at his word, that the work's going to be done by June 1st, and I think you heard him say tonight that if the deadlines are not met, that he would agree that the building be demolished. That 60-day period gives the property owner the opportunity to follow through with that schedule that's been laid out. But if at the 60-day period comes, nothing's been done or not enough has been done, then the building would have to be removed because it's been adjudged to be a dangerous building if that's what the council decides to do tonight. The council can decide the time period, it's in your discretion. I think what we talked about last time, it ranges from 30 days to 90 days, sometimes 120 days, sometimes longer. But the 60 days, I think from the staff's perspective, and they can speak to this, was in line with what the proposed schedule that you see before you to allow that sort of to play out and see if that can be completed. The other language that I mentioned in there, talking about that the city staff is authorized to delay disposal if the owner or any party in interest has demonstrated the ability and willingness to rehabilitate the building, that comes from the statute. The statute for dangerous buildings allows for that, but it has to be in the order to authorize, the delay of the disposal, so that if that 60-day comes and it's nearly done, or it's really looking like it's going to get to that across that finish line, that you can, the staff can or the city can delay that demolition date, that D-Day of June 1st or June 3rd, whatever the date that's 60 days from today would be, and allow that to be completed. So it provides a little bit of flexibility in there. If the property owner does what he says he's going to do, he's already done some things that you pointed out that he said he would do. So if that continues and there's that level of comfort after 60 days that it will proceed, then that can be delayed, the removal of the building. But on that 60th day, if nothing's been done or not enough has been done under this order, the city would have the authority to remove the building. And then in terms of the findings of fact, there are sort of numbered findings of fact in that document, Exhibit A, 1 through 12, with some subparts. And if you read through that, basically it's really to support that decision. It goes through the proceeding, the history, some of the facts about the property, and then some of the testimony that you heard at the public hearing last time. From Jennifer, from Chris through his affidavit, from Chief Chase, and from members of the public, and from the property owner as well. So, and that just summarizes what the findings were, and then the ultimate determination of the conclusion that it's a dangerous building. So, we can talk more if there's more questions about what other options may be, but this is drafted and designed to provide some flexibility and some on the part of staff to both work with the property owner during that 60-day period, but also to put a hard date down there that if it's not done by that 60-day period, then the building would be removed. So.
Questions from the council? Council Milton.
Just clarification, Mr. Abid, are you the owner? Yes. Because it says you're the representative of the owner in the. Yes, I am. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the council? There's no further questions. Before the questions put to the council, I think our legal counsel can advise on this, but I believe a motion would be in order to amend Exhibit A, the findings of fact to conform with the edits shown in the agenda packet on page 37 to 40. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Cowan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Walker. Any discussion? Vote. Councilor Milton.
His staff agrees with this?
I think this provides ample opportunity for corrections to be made, and it has a fallback plan as well to remove the safety hazards.
So just as a point of order, what we're considering is the finding of fact, not the order. So this is the red line finding of fact in your packet that Mr. Bauer pointed out that had been amended. Questions or comments on that? Councilor Wayne.
Quick comment that I think this is a good compromise in which we can work towards completion of the work. That may not be realistic, but assuming that there's substantial completion that satisfies city staff, that would be sufficient. And also, I think additionally, staff will impose upon them a requirement that egress be made in a way that does not invite unlawful entry.
So just as a point of order, the council have an opportunity to discuss the overall motion. We have two procedural matters we need to get through till we can get there. So the motion that's on the floor right now is a motion to amend Exhibit A, the findings of fact to conform with the edit shown in the agenda packet on page 37 to 40. The council ready for the question? The vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion is adopted. Further, we need a motion to amend the order of demolition to conform with the edited order of demolition provided to you by legal counsel at the start of the meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion made by Council Wisner, seconded by Councilor Milks. Is there discussion? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion is adopted. We now return to the main motion as amended. Is there any discussion by the council? Seeing none, council ready for the question? This will be adopting the finding of facts and the order of demolition. All vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The motion's adopted.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just one quick clarification point. Councilor Platts, I don't believe, was here last meeting, which is fine. I just want to, for the record, it's fine as long as he's familiar with the materials, and I think it'd be helpful just to state for the record that he's become familiar with the materials and the testimony that was provided at the last meeting, if that's
yeah, pose a question to Councilor Platts. If you've reviewed the materials and the actions at the last meeting in order to formulate a basis for your vote tonight?
Yes, I have. I reviewed the previous meeting minutes as well as previous public testimony, and of course are present here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on. Is there any other old business to come before the council? If not, we'll move on to new business. The next item is Order 420401-2024, authorizing the city clerk to consolidate to one polling place for the July 9, 2024 special municipal election, public hearing and vote. To remind the council and the members of the public, this is for the vacant at-large school board seat. The city clerk has brought this forward for council consideration given the historical low turnout that we see in these special elections, and to avoid the necessity to open all the polling places and engage all the staff that would be necessary to staff those. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Platts. Is there discussion? Council ready for the question? Excuse me. We'll open the public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to testify on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Is council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion's adopted. The next item is Order 430401-2024, adopting the 5-year capital improvement plan. This is the plan previously provided to the council in workshop by the city manager. As a reminder, we're adopting the plan. We're not actually adopting any appropriations at this point. Appropriations in the capital plan will be brought forward at a later time by the manager. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Whiting. Is there discussion by the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion is adopted. The next order of business is Order 440401-2024, approving the mass gathering for the Auburn Lobster Festival event scheduled for Saturday, May 11th, 2024. Have a public hearing and vote. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Milks. We'll open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to testify regarding this item? If so, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion by the council. Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The motion's adopted. In a related matter, the next item is Order 450401-2024, approving the temporary liquor license for an incorporated civic organization for the Lobster Festival event scheduled for Saturday, May 11th, 2024. There will be a public hearing and vote. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Milks. We'll open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to testify on this matter? If so, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion by the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next order of business is Order 460401-2024, approving the annual report to the Maine State Housing Authority for tax year 4/1/2023 to 3/31/2024. As a reminder to the council and the public, this is the standard report from the city to the Maine State Housing on the affordable housing development districts, which would be Webster School, 48 Hampshire Street, and 477 Minot Avenue. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Milk, seconded by Councilor Walker. Any discussion by the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion's adopted. The next item of business is Resolve 030401-2024, adopting the Androscoggin County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2024. As a reminder to the council and public, this is the hazard mitigation plan that's prepared by the Androscoggin Emergency Management Agency, has been submitted for FEMA for review. FEMA has accepted it, except it requires the approval of all the member towns in Androscoggin County. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Whiting. Any discussion by the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the resolve is adopted. Is there any other new business to come before the council? Not, we'll move on to the second open session. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business or any item that doesn't appear on the agenda tonight. If you would like to address the council, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the open session and we'll move on to reports. For the mayor's report, I attended, along with a number of the councilors, the Burnt Ends Barbecue ribbon cutting this past week. That was a very well attended event. It was great to see the public turnout and the number of councilors that could attend. And we certainly wish the best of luck to Burnt Ends Barbecue in the start of their new location here in Auburn. I also want to report that I had an opportunity to address a civic leadership seminar at University of Southern Maine on the Portland campus. It was a very enjoyable experience. It was great to see the number of young people participating in the class, 3 of which are from the Lewiston, Auburn area. And lastly, I would report that I attended the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Service this past Friday in Lewiston. Again, a very well-attended event. Represented the City of Auburn in thanking our Vietnam veterans for their service, and our support for veterans going forward. We'll have the City Council's reports. Councilor Geary.
I'll let my committee chair do the report.
Council Whiting. Council Cowan.
That's me. That's what Linda was saying. We've had 2 meetings of the Mayor's Ad Hoc Committee on Homelessness. Lots of very good discussion, some very good ideas being put forward. Our next meeting is on the 11th of April. It will be at the Senior Center. We're at this point meeting every other week to keep the momentum going, and look forward to being able to update you, Mr. Mayor, and my fellow councilors on some of the more immediate recommendations as well as medium and long-term goals. So, and then in addition to that, on April 11th, we're the LART's, the local transit committee is meeting as well, so we'll be looking at the budget. So, all of that.
Council Mills.
Yes, I had a meeting with the Ad Hoc Water Ad Hoc Committee, which has members from Turner, Lewiston, and Auburn Water District, and we got a report on phosphorus loading in Lake Auburn from the recent study, WRS study, and just wanted to give some, I thought, very interesting results for people that are interested. It's a great study. But the watershed load of phosphorus, the largest amount, is it's uncategorized. Watershed load, that's water, that's phosphorus that's loaded from various runoffs, rainstorms, 430 kilograms of phosphorus per year loaded into the lake. And as in contrast, the lowest by far, 9.1 kilograms per year from septic systems in the watershed. Internal loading of phosphorus in the lake, things like from the basin, 257 kilograms per year. So it's a significantly, the problems of phosphorus loading in the lake are significant, but houses and septic systems, and we are having some additional evaluation by the folks to talk about what, in addition to septic systems, what other things about houses, other permanent impermeable surfaces and things like that contribute additionally. But we're looking at less than 1% septic systems contributing phosphorus to the lake. So,
Council Wise.
Nope.
Council Walker.
Nothing new.
Council Platt.
Yep, 3 quick bullet points here. Obviously, as you guys saw today, the school committee presented its proposed superintendent's budget. So I just wanted to reiterate again, thanks to them and congratulations to the school committee. As you guys know, it's a lot of tireless, thankless work to get through these budget presentations, so they did an incredible job. Last 2 pieces, I attended a seminar on brown-tail moths down at the Auburn Senior Center earlier this week, I think, sponsored by Auburn Public Works as well as the Auburn Tree. I don't know if the working group. I should have better notes on that, but that was a very informative seminar. It's a problem that is affecting pretty much anybody with a tree on their property in this city. So if you need more information on that, feel free to reach out to me or Auburn Public Works. And lastly, the conservation working group, if you didn't see your email sent out by Liz Allen last week, but the conservation working group has put out a nice YouTube video on backyard pollinators. So that's how to turn your backyard into a bee expose. So all interesting stuff. So thank you to those groups for putting in the work.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council. Also pushed out by Liz Allen was with the partnership with the Natural Products and Ag Working Group is the Land Use Forum that is scheduled for April 13th, which is a Saturday at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. No cost to attend this. It'll be at the Auburn Senior Community Center at 48 Pettingill Road. And the other item I have is that we discussed in the workshop a additional budget workshop for the City Council, currently scheduled for April 8th. Was brought to my attention that is Eclipse Day, so if there's any need, others might need to attend. So if we need to change that date, let's do that now. But the plan right now would be April 8th would be that budget workshop, and we'll move.
I believe that's coming through at like 2 in the afternoon, so I think we're good.
You okay? If you're not traveling,
Well, we made it through April Fool's Day. We can probably make it through Eclipse Day.
could probably do it. So, that's all I have.
We'll have an executive session for the public. There's no action anticipated by the council after the executive session. Do we have a motion to move into executive session for economic development pursuant to 1 MRSA, subsection 4056C, for which premature disclosure would prejudice the competitive or bargaining position of the city?
Motion to move.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Cowan. Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. We'll be entering executive session.
See you.